Tonight, more Sunwing cancellations and a Regina bride forced to rebook flights for her wedding for the third time. Also, the fallout continues. Mary-Ellen Turpel-Lafond returns an honorary degree after the university questioned her ancestry.
Upset.
Plus, you've likely seen the adorable ads. A Saskatchewan guide dog user weighs in on CNIB's high fundraising costs.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, January 18th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thank you for watching. Trouble airline Sunwing is cutting even more flights out of Saskatchewan. Today, it announced it's canceling half of its planned flights out of Saskatoon this winter. Yesterday, it said that almost all flights out of Regina won't happen. It's particularly difficult for people with group bookings. Daniela Ponticelli brings us the story of a Regina woman forced to move her wedding more than once.
I have no faith in the company anymore, and I certainly will never book with them again after this.
Lindsay May delayed her destination wedding at first because of the pandemic. It was finally rebooked for this January, but then, just days before flying out, Sunwing canceled her Regina flight.
The fact that I found out from social media was really hard, and my phone was blowing up like crazy from friends and family saying, "Are you booked with Sunwing? Oh my God, I hope you're not booked with Sunwing. This is going to be bad."
May says she spent hours along with her travel agent changing plans. The resort was not offering any refunds, but did move her wedding date to mid-March, which worked for the 8 people in her group flying Sunwing until this week. The airline has confirmed it is cutting some of its Saskatoon flights and nearly all service from Regina for the rest of winter. Sunwing declined an interview, but in an email said this is due to extenuating circumstances. So while there are flight options, those don't apply to May, whose group also includes people from outside Saskatchewan, adding another challenge.
When there's cancellations that happen with a group in one city, it doesn't mean the whole group has a cancellation.
This travel agent says those guests who still have Sunwing service are not guaranteed a refund or rebooking options, which is why some groups are still trying to work out alternatives with the airline. Sunwing suggests Regina travelers depart from Saskatoon or make their way to a city in another province on their own dime to fly out of Calgary, Edmonton, or Winnipeg.
That takes time, extra time away from, guests who've already taken time off work. It's extra cost if they have to stay overnight in a hotel, if there's a morning flight the next day. It's just a lot.
May says her travel agent is helping her group switch airlines entirely, which will add to costs. For now, she's excited about her new wedding date on March 15th, which marks the anniversary of the couple's first conversation and the start of their future together. Daniela Ponticelli, CBC News, Regina.
The Crown is arguing that 2 women incarcerated for nearly 30 years for murder would be a danger to the public if released. The 2 Soto sisters want freedom while their case undergoes a federal ministerial review to see if they were wrongfully convicted. Dane Patterson was in the courtroom today and has more.
Narissa Cuisance is one of Canada's longest-serving female inmates. She has received parole before, but always landed back in custody because of parole violations. That's working against her here. Senator Kim Pate says it shouldn't.
When Narissa was unlawfully at large for over 2 years, she was actually working with people in the downtown east side. She was sheltering animals and fostering them. She was working. She was not posing a risk to public safety.
For Narissa and her older sister Odelia to receive a conditional release, their defense must prove to the court 3 things. 1, that their application for a federal ministerial review is not a frivolous one. 2, that they will return to the courts when requested. And 3, that it's in the public interest that the sisters are released. Crown Prosecutor Kelly Kipe says trial evidence and parole violations show the women are a danger to the public and there isn't enough proof that they're innocent. She gave a graphic recounting of the 1993 murder. 7-year-old Anthony Dolph was brutally stabbed. She says some of the family who had to clean the blood in Dolph's home were in the courthouse and still profoundly affected by the murder. Kipe also argued the women were, at minimum, involved in the attack. She also said the sisters confessed at the time, telling family members, "We killed a man." In response, the senior defense counsel James Lockyer argued that the women's confession to police were both forced and unreliable. He also questioned the credibility and competence of the police working at the Kamsack detachment at the time and said that systemic racism played a role. He did not present evidence about another confession from the woman's cousin. The defense wants minimal conditions like trauma counseling, rather than strict rules to abstain from alcohol or drugs and meet curfews, which would only be more institutionalization.
Like, I was talking to my oldest daughter, Haley, and she was mentioning, she was like, "Wow, Mom, you're 51 today, and you were in prison 30 years and 4 or 5 years in a boarding school, so I've been confined most of my life."
The Yorkton judges asked for more specific conditions if the women are released into the community. Court is adjourned until the end of February to allow the defense and Crown time to consider conditions for the women. Dane Patterson, CBC News, Yorkton.
Vancouver Island University says it has accepted Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafond's offer to return the honorary doctorate the university granted her in 2013. In a statement, the university said, quote, Turpel-Lafond informed VIU of her decision to voluntarily return the honor after receiving correspondence from the university that it would be moving forward with a process regarding her honorary doctorate, end quote. VIU is one of 11 Canadian universities that granted honorary doctorates to Turpel-Lafond. Meanwhile, the University of BC says it regrets its own handling of the case. You can read more about UBC's statement at cbc.ca/Sask. A family with Saskatchewan ties is mourning their son who died fighting in Ukraine. The 28-year-old and his parents moved to Kinistino in 2014. He recently moved to BC, then decided to volunteer on the front lines in Ukraine. Sam Sampson spoke to his father and friends about the path he took to the deadly streets of Bakhmut.
No matter where the camera found him, Grigory Sekmistrenko seemed to smile, especially surrounded by the natural beauty of his home on Vancouver Island.
He loves Canada. He loves mountains. He loves fishing. He loves hiking.
Sekmistrenko's father says he died in the eastern city of Bakhmut over the weekend. A medic on the front lines, he went into a building to help 3 injured soldiers. Then that building was hit by a rocket.
He's a special boy. He was very special boy.
His parents have been in Kyiv since September to support him during the war. They spent 2 weeks together during Christmas.
When he feel love from us, in 2-3 days, he wanted to give hug, start to be our boy.
The 28-year-old and his parents moved to Kinistino, Saskatchewan in 2014. It's where he got his Canadian citizenship. In 2020, the family moved to BC to be near the ocean. Then, news of war came. Sekmistrenko's plan was to help out, then come back to Canada.
I didn't want that he goes. I really didn't want, because we have just only one son. He had opportunity to stay and have a nice work, travel around, but he said that Ukraine is my home, where I grew up. And there are our roots.
And indeed, some Canadians may choose to take more active steps.
Despite warnings from Ottawa, an unknown number of Canadians have traveled to Ukraine to join the fight. Sekmistrenko is the 3rd confirmed Canadian combat death.
He knew from the get-go, no matter what happened, he would go and fight for Ukraine.
Because I lost a part of me. He was really a part of my life. I don't have a full acceptance and understanding of situation, I guess, until funerals, until I see him.
Sekmistrenko's father says the funeral will be sometime this weekend. Friends and family will be there, along with soldiers he helped protect. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Regina.
Recent data shows a 19% drop in the average house price sold in Regina between 2021 and 2022. That made Regina the city with the biggest drop in prices in Canada. It's a startling figure. But the organization representing realtors in the province say there's a better tool that they use to assess the real estate market.
Average price is a bit of a blunt tool, I would say. The benchmark price is actually comparing apples to apples in the typical neighborhood, typical house that you would see in this neighborhood. And so it doesn't fluctuate as much, but it also gives a better portrait of what the community is like.
The benchmark price in Regina saw a 0.1% drop between 2021 and 2022, while Saskatoon's benchmark price increased 0.8%. Garrett says the slight change in benchmark prices is a sign that Saskatchewan has a strong economy and the province's housing market is resisting inflationary pressure. The city of Regina is announcing a new temporary winter shelter for people with nowhere to stay. The 40-space shelter will open January 30th at the Nest Health Centre. That's the building on 13th Avenue that until recently housed the YMCA. The plan is a collaboration between the city, the province, Regina Treaty Status Indian Services, and the Nest Health Centre. Once the shelter opens, the city will stop operating a warming bus, and that part of the plan is not going over well with some.
Every single bed that is added to capacity means one less person who is freezing at night. My only concerns would be that I don't understand the rationale behind getting rid of the warming bus that the city of Regina has. It seems that every time we bring something into the fold, when something else comes along, we just simply take away. And we can't really build capacity to help our community if we're always giving with one hand and taking with the other.
The temporary shelter is going to include what's called professional wraparound services for people living in the shelter. That means help for other challenges that can sometimes come with or contribute to a person's homelessness, things like mental health or addictions. The city says it's providing furniture, supplies, and coordinating some minor renovations to make it work as a shelter. Well, some milder weather means some of the ice is starting to melt away, more water flowing, but don't get too excited about spring just yet. There's a good chance we're going to see some flurries over the next couple days in Saskatoon and elsewhere. Ethan will have more for you in weather after the break. Stay with us. The Canadian National Institute for the Blind is defending its fundraising costs. For the past 2 years, it's been making an urgent appeal for donations to expand its guide dog program. But the organization spends more than half the money it collects on fundraising. As Bonnie Allen reports, the nonprofit says it takes money to make money.
53-year-old Jody Laycock wanted a guide dog to keep her safe. The legally blind woman was tired of all the bruises, cuts, and broken bones from her walks alone.
Broken bones and bruises and lumps and bumps. But, that was a regular thing, slipping down the stairs. You don't realize a ledge is there. It's so easy to get injured when you can't see what you're doing.
She says her guide dog Shadow is priceless, but guide dog programs in Canada raise millions of dollars a year.
Upset. Yeah, good job.
At its national training facility, the CNIB Guide Dogs program expects to graduate 15 guide dogs this year. It wants to increase that to 150. That requires getting more dogs and more money.
Every week we're receiving new applicants, so our backlog, we're not going to be able to get out of our backlog for a few years.
The demand for guide dogs raised and trained in Canada is at crisis levels. CNIB Guide Dogs has launched a nationwide campaign to urgently expand their guide dog program.
This high-profile ad campaign is one example of CNIB's fundraising efforts. It's a big organization with a lot of programs, and financial statements don't break it all down. But overall, in 2021, CNIB received about $29 million in donations. It spent $15 million raising those funds. Add in overhead expenses, and for every dollar raised, about 52 cents went to fundraising costs.
Only 46 cents goes to the cause. The rest is going to fundraising, primarily. So you as a Canadian need to ask, is that reasonable to you?
CNIB says the figures are accurate, but that spreadsheets don't tell the whole story. and that attracting new donors is expensive.
You have to invest money to get money.
Guide dogs cost at least $50,000 to breed, train, and match. Getting one has changed Jody Laycock's life.
That's a huge amount of money. So without the donations, it doesn't happen.
And there's a high demand for assistance dogs.
The fact of the matter is that there are a number of schools across the country, and collectively we would not be able to meet the demand out there.
This guide dog user says finding ways to attract donations is critical.
Good boy.
And so is spending the money wisely. Bonnie Allen, CBC News, Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. The trade and upgrade event is on now.
Our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. You made a promise yesterday, and I'm getting kind of grumpy because I don't actually think you're going to be able to deliver. Where's the sun?
Well, I think you're seeing the negative in all this, Sam. I think we could be seeing days and days of extreme cold warnings, of snowfall.
But where's the sun?
It is coming.
Good.
It is. It's on its way. That I can tell you. And it's looking more and more like it every day now that we are going to see it by the end of the week. But the fog has become a bit of an issue because of the relative humidity that we are seeing in the province, which measures the amount of water vapor in the air. And we are relatively above where we should be in terms of that relative humidity amount. In fact, Environment Canada measures relative humidity twice daily, 6 a.m. and 3 p.m. And the 30-year average for the month of January in Regina at 6 a.m. is around 80%. We've been just above that so far this January. The 3 o'clock average in the afternoon, we're slightly above that as well. But you can really see the difference in Saskatoon. It usually hovers around 78% through this month, but they've been around 84%. And the real stark difference is the 3 o'clock reading. Usually for the month of January, around 74% relative humidity. We're about 8 points above that at around 82%. And we are even above that number still right now at this hour through much of the province. 90s through many regions, very close to that in other regions in the province. Moose Jaw, the big winner today, getting to 98% relative humidity. And that, of course, causing the fog to build in. We do have advisories still in effect for the city of Lloydminster and for Kindersley Rosetown as well. And here's why. Less than half a kilometer right now of visibility in those areas, and seeing some videos on social media of people who are having a bit of a hard time driving on roads in that area because it's just been sticking around all day. Those advisories have been in effect really since kind of early this morning. We're not expecting it to lift anytime soon, at least not through the night tonight. Still zero visibility in that part of the province and possibly around Assiniboia, Gravelbourg in the wee hours of the morning. And then getting into the early hours tomorrow around 6, 7 a.m. could shift its way southeast a little bit. Estevan could be close to zero and still struggling to get out of it in west central Saskatchewan. In addition to the fog tonight, I think we're going to still see a lot of that cloud cover. Southwestern Saskatchewan, you actually did see some sunshine today, and it's going to continue to clear for you folks. And overnight, the parklands could see a little bit of snow. Tomorrow through the day, still a mostly cloudy day, but again, western regions starting to clear a little bit of lingering snow. And then look at this, Friday, it all clears out. A lot of us really going to get a chance to finally see some sunshine unimpeded by cloud cover through the day. Wind's going to pick up a little bit, I think, heading into Friday, but really we're not going to see that pick up until we get to the beginning of next week. As you'll see in our extended forecast here for Regina, yes, sun and cloud on Friday, and then we're looking at a little bit of a system moving in at the end of the weekend, which could bring a little bit of snowfall, and then winds picking up as we head through Tuesday, Wednesday. Our temperatures riding a little bit of a roller coaster there. Saskatoon, yes, you may see the sun tomorrow and temperatures quite warm over these next few days. You're going to be not impacted by that system. Some very nice conditions. Winds making a return. But may I say, Sam, I'm kind of looking forward to this return to normal winter.
Yes, but also I suggest we move the show up to Saskatoon for the next week so we get more sunshine.
Yeah, nice vacation up there.
Yes, please. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
A New Brunswick surveyor crosses paths with nature regularly, but he never expected to capture this. Derek Bourgogne happened to hit record at just the right moment and caught video of a moose shedding its antlers. Bull moose shed their antlers every winter and grow new ones during spring and summer. Bourgogne kept the antlers. He's been collecting the shedded variety since he was a kid. These new additions have a 45-inch spread. We'll be back after the break. Hospitals are under strain across the country. In Nova Scotia, the provincial government announced a long list of changes it hopes will relieve some of the pressure and improve care in emergency departments. It comes after the deaths of 2 women after lengthy waits at ERs. Brett Ruskin reports.
Some significant changes coming to healthcare delivery, especially emergency care delivery here in Nova Scotia. Starting this Saturday, we're going to have patient advocates, new positions who are going to be volunteer positions in each and every emergency room in the province. They're going to be there to help families liaise with the triage team, as well as to provide blankets and food and water and coffee, things that people might need as they wait for care in those emergency rooms. In February, we are going to see a significant expansion of the virtual emergency care system. And basically what it means is you go to an emergency room, you are seen by a nurse or a paramedic there, and you could wait for the doctor on call, on staff there in person, or you could be offered the chance to go to a specific room with that nurse or that paramedic and do a virtual consultation with a physician who might be off-site. So this is designed as a way to keep the flow of patients moving through that emergency department, through that emergency room, when you perhaps don't have all the physicians that you need in that specific geographic location. In March, we are going to see expansion of the Care Coordination Center. That is a software and a location, a room in each one of the hospitals where this is launched in, where basically offers a 10,000-foot view of what is happening in the hospital, make things more efficient for patients to move through the system, to find vacancies and overcrowded areas, to perhaps say, hey, we got too many people here, let's move them to these spare and free beds here. Taking a look at April, an expansion of a training course for paramedics launching in Yarmouth. September, that same expansion of a training course in Pictou, Nova Scotia. Some items that don't have dates or months attached to them. New air ambulance services, also a new rebate available to paramedics who agree to work in Nova Scotia for at least 3 years. There is no clear specific estimate for how much this will cost. The closest that we got to a number figure was tens of millions of dollars is the cost for all of these changes announced to fix and at least improve the healthcare system here in Nova Scotia. Brett Ruskin, CBC News, Halifax.
And Ethan is back with one last look at tonight's weather.
Still hanging on to cloud cover through southern Saskatchewan. Sam, Regina will get to -6 tomorrow. Not too bad for an 8 a.m. temperature. A little bit of fog is possible in the morning hours before burning off. We're going to stay there as we head to the noon hour. Really not much changing, and the winds are going to be nice and light. Saskatoon, lucky you. Maybe a little bit of sunshine tomorrow morning when you wake up and get ready to head out the door. Again, fog still possible for you since you're closer to west central Saskatchewan, where you could see quite a bit of that. Raising to -5, a little bit of cloud cover building back in. Speaking of Saskatoon, we'll take you up to the forestry farm where Trent snapped these great shots of these very photogenic birds that you're about to see. This female snowy owl and this bald eagle. Looks like he's a little hungry, Sam. May need something to eat pretty soon.
I'm very impressed. Those are great photos.
They are very detailed.
If people want to send you photos, Ethan, how do they do it?
Sask photos at cbc.ca.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
And that is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/Sask or /Saskatoon or subscribe to CBC Saskatchewan's YouTube channel. Glenn, Reed, and Ethan will be back with more local news and weather tonight at 11. Thanks for watching and have a great night.